Hi guys, good morning. I hope you are able to hear me. Can anyone please confirm? So- Perfect. So in the last session, we started talking about Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. And Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 is specifically designed for storing massive volume of data. So if you have a massive volume of data, if you wanted to process it, I always recommend to keep it in a ADLS Gen 2 because this is specifically designed for big data processing. And that we started talking about it. And we can store the data, varieties of the data we can store. We can store the files, we can store the tables, file shares, and quiz. These first three are not much more important for data engineers. So for data engineers is very important. The blobs are very important for data engineers. So that we are talking about it. Right after creating the storage account, we have seen how we can create a root directory called container. And how the data is going to be distributed. As we discussed in the last session, the data is going to be divided into multiple blocks, and blocks are going to be distributed across the different nodes. So this is completely internal mechanism. Now, I wanted to talk about a few more details about the storage account. So these details are going to be helpful only if you are going for certification. So other than certification, this role you're going to use it, but our part is very, very less at the time of working. We are not going to be decision makers what kind of access tier is required. So those things will be taken care by administrators. So here I'm saying access tiers in the storage. There are 4 different types of access tiers, but basically this archive was treated as a cold, so we can take only 3. I'll show you how exactly we can see or where we can see this 3 different types of access tiers. So the cost is going to be decided by based on access tier. The access tier is going to say how much time you're going to store the data in the storage, how frequently you're going to access the data. So depends on the 2 items, depends on the 2 situations Microsoft is charging. So not only Microsoft Azure, if you take any cloud, everyone is going to do the same thing. I have some items I wanted to store. For storing, they're going to charge. I wanted to access frequently. If you want to access the data frequently, then charge will be different. If you're going to access the data infrequently, the cost will be different. So in order to reduce the cost of the storage, we are having the following different types of access tiers. Depends on the access tier, the cost will be changed. So 3 costs are available here. One is hot, optimized for frequently accessed data. 100% we are going to use only hot. As we are data engineers, we are going to use hot. We are going to access on daily basis. So everyday usage scenarios, for everyday usage scenarios, we are going to use this. This will be the default option, which is going to be set up by administrators. And even Microsoft also has given a default option. And if at all, if you wanted to reduce the cost, then we can think about, we means we are not generally administrators. So administrators come up with the plan to change the access tier to reduce the cost. Optimized for infrequently accessed data. Infrequently. I have a data in the storage. If I wanted to access the data frequently, with multiple users. So multiple users or data engineers, if they're trying to access the data, if that is the case, you can go for hot. And if you're going for infrequently accessed, then you can go for this. So it is for backup scenarios. So for backup scenarios, we are going to have a cool storage. The price will be different. I have given here when the data is in sleeping, that means the data is there in the storage, but data is in slept. The data is in the sleeping. If that is the case also, there will be a cost. Even if the data is not in motion, even if the data is sitting idle, still Microsoft is going to collect the charge. But the cost is very, very less. And while data in a transition, even when the data is moving, in that particular case also, they're going to charge it. So depends on the hot, cool and cold, depends on this, the price is going to be decided. Okay, so these points are more enough for you because we are not going to handle this. And optimize this cold is optimized for rarely accessed data and backup scenarios. So these two are for mostly for backup scenarios. For some reason, if you wanted to reuse it in the future, then you can have it. But if the data is going to be in the motion, if you wanted to a little make it faster, then definitely you need to have a heart. So for heart, storage cost is high and accessing cost is less because you're frequently accessing the data. If you're frequently accessing the data, cost is little less. So you don't worry about more on this. It's just for understanding. I'm just going to take you through this. So this will be helpful only if you go for certification. If you're going for directly working, then we don't need to think about access tiers. So where we can find this access tiers, let me show you so that you can understand. Let's go to the portal. I'm just taking a storage account. Plus create. The resource group, I'm just taking a test resource group, any resource group that you can take it. As we have created this test resource group, I'm just taking it. And we need to take the storage account name here. So this one, everyone should practice how we can create a storage account is because when I'm going to talk about Azure Data Factory, 100% is we should configure for ourselves. We should configure for our practice. So in real time, someone is going to take care about it, but here we have to take care about it. So because of that reason, my main concentration is how we can set up this environment for Data Factory, how we can set up this environment for Azure Databricks. So that is the main motive of this, why we are coming across this storage account. Otherwise, I can directly go and take the Data Factory and I can explain it. But I would like to explain how we can set up Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. This is very, very important for us. So now I'm just giving Bhaskar ADLS Gen 2. I'm just giving some name. It is already available. Let's say 13 something. Some number I'm just giving. 2213 I have given. This account is available. It's globally identified. And we need to take the region. So region here I'm taking is Central India. When you're storing the data, I always recommend not only me, even the solution architects also recommend to keep the storage wherever you're going to process the data. Let's say I'm processing the data from East US. If I'm processing the data from East US, then my storage also should be there in East US only. If you have a data in Central India, then it's not going to be good practice. So wherever we are going to do the process, you have to keep the storage in the same place, or wherever you are going to have a storage in the same place, try to keep the processing services. So because of that reason, we discussed about the services hierarchies to have the policies. They're going to restrict the policies. They're going to keep the policies to restrict the creating a services wherever you wanted to create it. So I'm just taking Central India is my nearest location. So I'm just taking this Central India. And primary service, my main motive is to talk about Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. So just take Azure Blob Storage or Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. How do we know that is a Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 is in the next step. In the next step, we are going to enable hierarchical namespace. Hierarchical namespace decides is that blob account or ADLS Gen 2 account. So let it be this redundancy. we are going to talk about today itself. What is this redundancy? What is the purpose of it? Let's go to the next. In the next, we have a advanced. In the advanced, you have to choose, you have to make sure to have this enable hierarchical namespace. You need to have a hierarchical namespace. So what it is going to do is, it is going to accelerate big data analytics workloads. It's going to improve the performance of your big data processing. So if you're trying to process the data, if you're trying to process massive volume of data, then make sure to check this checkbox, because this is specifically designed to process the big data. If it is a general purpose, if you don't check this, then it is a blob account. And if you check this, then it is a ADLS Gen 2. So as we are creating a ADLS Gen 2, I'm just enabling hierarchical namespace. Now I told you there are 3 different types of access tiers. Here is the one. So hot is the default one. Hot is the default one. While creating a storage account, administrators are going to decide what kind of access tier we wanted to keep it. 100% we are going to keep, our administrators are going to keep the default, that is hot. So frequently we are going to access for day-to-day activities. If you are doing a day-to-day activity, simple, you just go and choose the hot. In the certification, if you get a question which is specific to this day-to-day transactions, just go and select hot. You can feel that whatever the options we discussed, all these options are available here. And then we don't need to go for other options. These are all purely related to administrators. We don't need to set up anything. Just leave it everything as it is the default. I'm just going to click on review plus create. We can directly create a Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 after setting those properties. Only we are going to set the properties in the basic and advanced. Let me hit on review plus create. And just verify if you feel all these options are up to the requirement. Basically, we don't need to care about it, as we're just doing a practice on top of Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. This is purely related to administrators. Now I'm just going to hit on create. This activity is a regular activity while doing a practice of our Azure data engineering stuff. Okay, so we need to know about it. The navigations is important. Even if your profile is getting scheduled, definitely they're going to ask, do you have experience with Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2? So you have to say yes, because we're talking about all of this. Just explain what we discussed as part of the regular session. So just explain to them, especially in the HR, in the starting process of a profile, they used to ask from the HR department. Let's hit on go to resource. When I hit on go to resource, what happens is it will go inside the resource. If you want to go inside the resource right after deployment is completed, just hit on go to resource. This is one of the way to go inside the resource. Let me hit on resource, go to resource. Now I'm there inside the resource group. Or now I'm there inside the resource. My storage account name is Bhaskar ADLS Gen 2 2213. So inside this, what we need to have? Inside this, we need to have a containers. So who is going to create a container is not our job. For practicing, yes, we have to create our practice. So while practicing, I always used to take the resource group as data files. Let me hit on plus container. The name of the container, I'm taking data files. Let me hit on create. Now data files is created. Let's go inside the data files. I'm there inside the data files. I have a container in the storage account. How your data factory is going to access it, or how your Databricks is going to access, we'll see throughout the sessions. And the next is, once we created a storage account, then what we have to do is, we have to think about how we can access the storage. How we are going to access the storage. That is important for us. As a data engineer, what we need to know is when you have a storage somewhere, when you're trying to create a pipeline to move the data from one place to another place, or when you're creating a notebook to transform the data as per the business requirement, the first thing that you need to care about is where is my data? Is my data available? What is the name of the file? How data is there? All these things we need to know it. So in order to know, we need to understand how we can access the data from the Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. How we can access the data from Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. In order to access the data from Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2, we are having 4 different types of options. One is by using the portal, you can access the data. By using the portal, you can access the data. But this is having less chances to have access to the portal. You may not have access to the portal. Then how you're going to access the data? That is one thing. And another thing is by using Azure Storage Explorer, we can access the data. So this is very, very, very important for us. So accessing the data from the Azure Storage Explorer is very important. And then by using Data Factory also we can access it. By using Data Factory, 90% of the time we are going to use Data Factory and Databricks to access the data. And rest of the percentage is client tool, that is Azure Storage Explorer. So without writing a code, we can read the data from the Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 by using Azure Data Factory. And by using Azure Databricks also, we can read the data, but it's 100% coding, we need to write it. Without writing a code, we cannot access it. Without writing a code, we cannot bring the data from the storage account with Databricks. So Databricks is 100% coding. And by using Data Factory, without writing the code, we can access it. And Azure Storage Explorer is a pure user interface. We don't need to write a code. We can just access it. So at the time of prerequisites, we talked about what we required. What are the prerequisites? We already installed Azure Storage Explorer. Just go through that prerequisite session so that you can understand how we can set up this Azure Storage Explorer. So we need to install, if it is not installed, you need to install Azure Storage Explorer. Even at the time of working, you have to ask your team, or you have to ask your infra team to install Azure Storage Explorer. We don't need to pay any license for this. You need to have some approval. You have to write the ticket to install Azure Storage Explorer in the real time. They will make it installed. So we don't need to pay any paisa for this Storage Explorer. It's a free of cost. In order to manage your storage, we can use this. And this is very, very important, especially while doing a testing. I'll talk about what issues I came across it and how I have provided the solution for them. We'll talk about it. So how we can access is by using the Azure Storage Explorer, we can access the data at the time of development. We can access the data at the time of development, at the time of testing, and at the time of production also. In all the 3 different environments, we require Azure Storage Explorer. So at the time of working, we are going to use it. 100% is we are going to be part of the development. 100% is we are going to be part of testing. I mean, testing means you're not going to do end-to-end testing, but you're going to be part of the testing. So if someone is saying that the data is not matching from the testing team, then that is your responsibility to say, is data correct or not? So testers are not going to be responsible. Testers are going to identify the bug. So I'll talk about how exactly you can respond when you have a when you have a at the time of working, how you can respond. We'll talk about it over the period of time. So here I'm going to explain how we can access the storage account by using the storage account name and account key. Basically, these details will be there with the administrators, and connection string, we can use it, and how we can use our storage account, how we can use Azure Storage Explorer that we are going to say. Let me open Azure Storage Explorer. You can see here. So after installation, you are going to have this. We already seen how we can do install of Azure Storage Explorer. So you can directly go and hit on it. Azure Storage Explorer, again, hit on it. So I'm having a storage account here. Just expand it. I'm just going to detach them first. So whatever the accounts are there, those accounts I'm just going to detach. So just imagine when you open first time, you're going to have like this. And I'm just going to right click on it. Hit on connect to Azure storage account. From here only we are going to use it. From the portal also you can do it. But portal access, if you have a portal access, then only can do it. But when you use this storage explorer, even if you're not having access to the portal, if you're having access to the storage account, that is more enough to access it from the storage explorer. Let me right click on it and hit on connect to Azure storage. So these are all the options we're having here: subscription, storage account, blob container. So specific options are there. You can get to know what type of access they have provided. Based on that, you can connect it. So when you are going to work with a new project as a new member, then definitely you can take a help from the existing team. You are going to have some idea about it. Whatever you are having here, you can say the same thing. Previously, I used to connect in this way. You can say that you can try from your side, and if it is not working, you can check with your team. So in my case, I used to have access at the subscription level. I directly went at the subscription level to connect my storage account. If you go with the subscription level, your email ID is enough. Your Microsoft Entra ID is enough. But if you go with the storage account or service, then you have to provide some details. So just imagine, I'm just going to have a storage account or service. You just observe. I have a various options here in order to do this. I have a connection string, shared access signature, and account name and key. So let me take the account name and key. Let me select this account name and key and hit on next, because I've taken two options here in order to connect it: account name and account key. Account key is required. If they provide account key, 100% they never provide. This will be provided for only administrators, the people who are having administrator rights. For them, they're going to provide. As we are data engineers, they don't provide it. So where we can find this administration key is in the storage account. I'm there in the storage account. You can find there is a security and network. In the security and network, you can have a access keys here. So by using this access keys, you can access your storage. Let me hit on access keys. Here you can see key 1 is there and storage account name is there. I'm just going to take a copy of this. Let me hit on show. Take a copy of this, come to your storage explorer and paste it here. If they are providing the access key, they will share the access key in the email. Okay, so which is not shareable. So they will share, they have their own strategies to share the key if they are providing an access key to you. But I'm sure 100% they don't provide. But if they provide, this is one of the option to connect it. Let's take this storage account name and keep the storage account name here. I'm just keeping the same as my storage account name and display account name and hit on next and hit on connect. Expand this blob containers. You can see data files container here, but I'm not having anything in the data files. So no data is available. So if you wanted to keep the data, you can keep the data from this place, from the Explorer, you can keep it. You can keep the data from Explorer, or you can keep the data from the portal. So both the places I'm going to show you how we can access it. This will be helpful at the time of working. So let me do it first from the portal. Go to your storage containers. Let's go inside the container. I'm just going to try to create a directory here. Plus directory. The name of the directory is input. The name of the directory is input. Now I wanted to create one more output directory from the Storage Explorer. Let's go to Storage Explorer. Just refresh here. Somewhere you can find refresh. Now it is refreshed. We can find there is an input directory. Let me create a new folder here. The naming standard is folder and there it is a directory. Both are same. A new folder. The name of the folder is output. So I always used to take the naming standard like this, input directory and output directory, and hit on OK. Now two directories are going to be available. My input directory is a source directory. My output directory is a target directory in the feature sessions. My data factory is going to treat input directory as source directory and output directory as a sync directory. We are going to talk about all those details again at the time of data factory. And once you're done, I wanted to upload a file into the input directory. So that you can do it from the portal also. I mean, we can do it from the portal and we can do it from the Storage Explorer. But in real time, we never upload the data from the outside into the storage account. So only for doing a practice, we are going to do it. In some places, in some situations, we are going to upload the data from one storage account to another storage account or one container to another container at the time of working. So where exactly I came across that, I'm going to take you through that. At this point of time, you just imagine for doing a practice that we are responsible to set up the environment. So when you're doing a task, for every task, there is an input and there is an output. For every task, there is an input and there is an output. So what is your input and what is your output? What you can do to get the output? So that is your pipeline. That is your data factory. So how we are going to do it, we'll talk about it. Now for time being, let me upload a file from the Storage Explorer. Let's upload. You can upload a folder also. So where it is, you just observe here what it is doing, a block type, block. So that means the data is going to be divided into blocks. As I said, the default block type is block. Every block size is 4 MB. At the time of creation of the storage account, we have taken 4 MB as the default. And I'm just going to upload the file here. You can see selected files, just hit on browse. So I'm just taking some file, EMP data, I'm just taking. Any number of files you can take it. For practicing, just keep as many as you want, if the requirement demands or if the use case demands. So I'm going to give the file names also at the time of use cases. Let me hit on open and hit on upload. So 2 files I'm uploading here. So 2 files are uploaded. The same 2 files I can see from the portal also. If you are having access from the portal, you can do from the portal as well. But I always go with the Storage Explorer because this will be much more flexible. So this is not going to be, I feel this is not going to be much more flexible. But if you feel this is flexible, yes, you can also use the portal if you are having access to the portal. Let's go inside the portal and see we are having 2 files here. What are the 2 files that we uploaded from the Storage Explorer? The same files are available here also. I'm going to upload one more file from here. I'm just taking a customer CSV file. Let's open and upload. The same file I can see from here also. Just refresh it. You can see customer.csv file. So that you can understand is the file available or not before doing your task. Or if you wanted to see the data, how data is there, various options are there. In order to see the data in the file, I always recommend to go with the Databricks if you're having a Databricks. So Databricks, even if you're writing a code, 100% we're going to write a code, but still I feel it is easy to see how a data is arranged. How many columns are there, what columns are there, that you can understand, I feel easily in the Databricks. So if you don't have a Databricks, then it's a different story. You have to go with the Data Factory or you have to download the file and you have to see that. And the next important thing, this one also is fairly related to only certification, not for working point of view. In working point of view, we don't care about redundancy. We don't care about what kind of redundancy they are using. But in my project, we are using GRS, Geo Redundant Storage. So redundant means a duplicate or replication. How we are going to replicate the data in the Azure, or how Azure is going to replicate the data. In order to replicate the data in the Azure, there are 2 reasons are available. One is primary reason and other is secondary reason. One is primary reason and other is secondary reason. So when we are going to use this is, if you wanted to available, I mean, if the data wants to available at highest level, then we are going to use the replication. We are going to duplicate the data so that losing of the data is very, very less chances. This is purely related to administrators. So they are responsible to have the data in a multiple places so that we don't lose the data. For example, I have a laptop. My laptop is going to have a 500 GB space. 500 GB space is available. For some reason, if my laptop is corrupted, then I'm going to lose the data. For some reason, whatever the data you're having, your laptop capacity is 500 GB, but I'm having only 1 GB data in the laptop. If the laptop is corrupted, then there is no use of your data. It's not possible to get it. There is a different mechanisms are there to extract the data, but sometimes the data is going to lose. If the laptop is broken, then you cannot access the data. It's completely gone. And if we have some hard drive, if we keep the same data here, even if my laptop was corrupted, even my laptop was broken, but still I have a data in the hard disk. I can bring the data into this place. So that means you're keeping the same data in two different places. One is in the laptop, another is in the hard drive. So losing of the data is very, very less chances. Even if this hard drive also was stolen for some reason, then you are going to lose the data. The same kind of mechanism they brought into the Azure also. We are going to have a two different reasons. One is primary reason and other is secondary reason. We are going to have a two reasons we are going to have it. We are going to have a two reasons. Inside the two reasons, I'm going to have a availability zones. I'm going to have a availability zones. So let me say this one. So three availability zones are going to be available. So I wanted to say them as availability zone 1, availability zone 2, and availability zone 3. Zone 2 and zone 3 and so on will be there. But basically for every account, they're going to give a 3 different availability zones. Okay, so it's a primary reason. This is a primary reason. So while creating a storage account, which location we have taken? We have taken Central India. So Central India is my primary reason. Central India is my primary reason. So whatever the reason that you have taken while creating a storage account, so that will be treated as a primary reason. That will be treated as a primary reason. And so I'm the user or I'm the developer. I'm just trying to keep the files in the storage account. I'm just trying to keep the data in the storage account. So let's take an example. I'm just trying to keep the file called employee.csv. I'm just trying to keep the file called employee.csv. When I'm having a location, a Central India, the Central India will be treated as a primary region. So within the primary region also, we can replicate the data in the availability zones. Okay, so collection of data centers is known as a region. Collection of data center is known as a region. So within the region, you are going to have a multiple data centers. So let's take an example. You're taking LRS. You're taking redundant type as LRS. Locally redundant storage. You're taking locally redundant storage. What happens if I go and take a local redundant storage? LRS. It is going to have a 3 copies of the data here. Within the same place, within the availability zone 1, I'm going to have a 3 copies of the data here. So that means the same data is going to be there 3 times. Same data. If the size of this data is 1 GB and 3 times means 3 GB, 3 times it is going to keep the data. But they're not going to keep the data in the same place. They're going to keep the data in different places. So I'm taking availability zone 1. You're going to have a racks, right? I hope you're aware of how data centers are going to be there. Let me show you. So this is how these data centers are going to be there. This will be there within the region or within the availability zone 1. So we don't know, is that stored in this rack or is that stored in this rack? The racks will be different. So that is how it is going to do here. So three copies of the data is going to be replicated in different places. Again, this will be divided into blocks, this will be divided into blocks, this will be divided into blocks. It's a different, but same kind of data is going to be there in 3 times in 3 different places. So when you go with the LRS, basically LRS is going to have if they have any restrictions to keep the data, they're going to have this kind of redundancy. They don't keep the data out of the region. So let me show you. Hit on plus create. You can see redundancies. Locally redundant storage. Lowest cost option with basic protection against server rack. So basic protection means if it is fail, then it's difficult to handle it. And drive failures. Recommended for non-critical scenarios. If you're having a non-critical scenarios, then people can go and choose this option. So if you're preparing for certification, this will be helpful. If for non-critical scenarios, what kind of redundancy you're going to take if they ask, then you can fail. We can take a locally redundant storage. And even some companies or some countries, they're going to have a policies. They're not supposed to keep the data out of their region, out of their country. If that is the case also, they're going to choose the LRS only. Government projects, they don't keep the data out of the region. So they're going to keep within the LRS only. So what happens here is, if this rack is failed, or if the availability zone 1 is failed, then you're going to lose the data if you take the LRS. So Microsoft is providing the options to you. Based on your requirement, you can choose the options. Microsoft is providing the options. Just choose the options how you wanted to take it. If at all, if it is failed, or if your requirement is not demanding to go with the LRS, then they're giving an option to ZRS. So Z means zone redundant storage. So zone wise, it is going to replicate the data. That means, so one copy of the data is going to be here. Another copy is going to be here. And another copy is going to be here. That means losing the data is getting less chances when you compare with the LRS. So what happens if you take the LRS is, if this entire is down, then you are going to lose the data if it is a LRS. But you just imagine if it is a zone redundant storage, you are having one copy in one zone, another copy is in another zone, in other copy is another zone. So zone is equivalent to A data center, a collection of data centers is a region. Now, if this entire, for ZRS, if this entire availability zone is down for some reason, but still I have a data in the zone 2. Even if this is also is down, still I have a data in the zone 3. Just imagine if the entire region is down for some reason, due to heavy rains or due to earthquakes, natural disasters. For some reason, my entire region is down. Then you are going to lose the data. So lose means data is not going to be available. And you may lose also. We are not sure about it. They will try to capture it back, but at that point of time, your business will be stopped. If the region is not available, if the entire region was affected, then definitely they're going to lose the business. So for that reason, Microsoft has given one more redundant mechanism, that is Geo Zone Redundant Storage, GRS. So when the moment you have a GRS, we are going to have a secondary region also. We are going to have a secondary region. So secondary region is not going to be under our control. The secondary region will be taken care by Microsoft itself. We are not going to be responsible for that. We are not going to be responsible. So Microsoft will take care about the secondary region. So secondary region comes only when there is a GRS, Geo Redundant Storage. When the moment you say the Geo Redundant Storage, 100% there is a secondary region. So for storage, for data storage means there is a ADLS Gen 2 is there and SQL Server is also there. So whatever we are talking now for Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2, this is 100% similar to SQL Server also, or wherever there is a storage. Wherever there is a storage, we are going to have the similar kind of approach. Now, I'm going to have, here I'm going to have a one copy. Here I'm going to have one more copy, and 3 copies we are going to have within the local redundant. So LRS plus, and here I'm going to have a 3 copies. So here also you're going to have a 3 copies. This is a, in the secondary region, 100% it is LRS only. In the secondary region, you're going to have a 100% LRS. %, it is a LRS. So when the moment you have a secondary region, keep in mind the secondary region is going to have a only LRS. This is how you're going to have it. How many copies here? 3 copies here and 3 copies. So 6 times. How data is going to be written is synchronously the data is going to be written in this particular storage also. So we don't care about how exactly they're handling it. We always going to be care about how we can store the data. So this is an internal mechanism. There is a sync or there is a connectivity between the primary region and secondary region. That connectivity will be taken care by Microsoft. You don't worry about it. So when it is going to get the connectivity is only if there is a GRS. If you have a GRS, then only it is going to be possible. Otherwise, it is not going to be possible. So this is for only GRS. And for some reason, if this availability zone 1 is down and my secondary region also is down, just imagine. So to provide the solution, we have a one more redundancy, that is GZRS. The GZRS is zone geo redundant storage or geo zone redundant storage. GZRS. Geo zone redundant storage. The geo zone redundant storage is going to have I'm going to have a one copy here, another copy is here, and another copy is in the availability zone 3. So 3 copies, and rest of the 3 copies we are going to have in the secondary region. This is how you are going to have it. So this is about GZRS. So redundancy mechanism is going to work in the similar way for Azure Data Lake Azure SQL Server and whatever the data storage in the Microsoft. Even when you create a virtual machine also, you're going to have the similar kind of mechanism. So wherever you're going to have a redundancy, so redundancy is the process of duplicating the data. Okay, so there is a very, very less chances to lose the data. So this knowledge is helpful when you go for certification, and while working, this is not at all useful for us. Okay, so I'm stopping here. In the next session, we are going to start talking about the another storage, that is up to this part we have done. Azure Storage Platform, we are having PaaS services, Azure account, and in the next session, I'm going to concentrate on Azure SQL Server. Because in order to do the practice with the data factory, we need to have a Azure SQL Server also. So Azure SQL Server is one of the storage which is very, very important for us. We need to know how we can read the data from Azure SQL Server by using data factory, by using Databricks, and in all the way we need to know about it. So how we are going to handle it, that we are going to see in the next session. So I'm stopping here, and if you have any question, you can ask me. Any question? So is everyone created an account? So if not yet created, please reach out me. And one more thing I wanted to say, I forgot to ask you to join the group. So I said one link, guys. So please join with that group so that, yeah, some people have joined. That's fine. So please make sure to be there in the group so that you can get all the alerts from there. Okay. Okay, then thank you for joining. We'll see you tomorrow.